Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel Style by C. On today's tutorial, we'll talk on how to create this beautiful maxi bubu gown which can be styled in different ways. You can decide to style it as a ruche or with the drawstrings. You can decide to snatch your waist. You can also decide to wear it like a normal maxi bubu. Alright, so do subscribe to the channel, share to friends. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up and sit tight. Let's get started. The fabrics we'll be working with, we have two pieces of Ankara prints or African prints. So this is what I have, two different designs. That's what we're going to be working with. All right, so yeah, the first I did was to place my fabric on the floor. Okay, all right, so now I'm working with two fabrics, actually two African prints. This is the first one. I placed it right side facing each other, the two of them right side facing each other, because I'm going to be making it like a combination. All right, so this is the first one down, this is the second one, right side facing each other. So this is it. So the next thing I'm going to go ahead to do now is to mark the full length of my gown, how long you want your gown to be. Okay, so I'll be working with 61 to 62 inches. You can make yours shorter depending on the length you are working with. All right, so that's the first thing I did. So I'm going to go ahead now and mark the full length of my gown. So guys, this is my start point line. I'm gone ahead to mark it. So this start point line is also going to be serving as my shoulder measurement. So at this point now, I'm going to go ahead and mark my neck measurements, my shoulder measurements, my sleeve length. That is where I'm going to insert it. Now, because we are working with two fabrics and there's going to be a joining, so I'm going to be leaving half an inch for my joining. Okay, so I'm going to be marking half an inch. So I'm going to be using this African print mount design as my guideline, serving as my half an inch. So from that point now, I'm going to be marking my shoulder measurement, which is 7.5 inches. This is my shoulder measurement. All right. The next thing I will mark is the length of my sleeve. Now it's based on how long you want your sleeve to be. The choice is totally yours. So I'm going to be working with 12 inches for the length of my sleeve, which is here. So at that point now, where my 12 inches stopped, I'm going to be coming down by 1 inch. The 1 inch is going to be serving as my shoulder slope. All right. Now I'm going to go back to this point now and mark 3 inches. The 3 inches I'm marking is my neck width. All right. So I'm going to connect it to my shoulder slope. Okay, so this is what I have. Then the next thing I'm going to be marking is at this line, shoulder start point, I'm going to mark 2 inches down. This first piece we are cutting out is our back piece. We're going to be using it to cut out our front piece. Please bear that in mind. Now I'm going to connect my shoulder, my neck width to my neck depth. 3 by 2 inches. This is what I have. So now I'll go ahead and insert my armhole opening or my sleeve length. So from this point now, so I'm going to go ahead and insert my armhole opening, sorry. So from this point, my 1 inch, I'm going to be coming down by 11 inches down. Okay, you can decide to come down by 12 inches depending on how open you want yours to be. So this is my 11 inches, that is my armhole opening. All right, then place my tape back to my start point line. This is where my bust point stops, which is at 10 inches, but that is totally fine. Now at this point now, I'm going to insert my bust measurement. So my bust measurement is 9 inches. Please note that we're adding half an inch. We added half an inch here for our joining. So this is where my bust measurement is. All right, so from this point now, I'm going to be adding 4 inches. The 4 inches extra is for ease. You can decide to add up to 5 inches depending on how wide you want yours to be or how bubbly you want your clothes to be. The choice is totally yours. So now this is where my 10 inches stops and this is where I'm having my armhole it is totally fine. So what I'm going to do now is from this point now, I'm going to making a curve into that my line. Sorry, let me adjust my camera. So from this my armhole opening depth, I'm going to be curving it in till I get to the bottom part of my gown. All right, so I'm going to be marking it straight down to the end. Down, this is what it looks like. This is what I have. Okay, so the next thing we are going to be working on now is this area of our sleeve. Okay, so I'm going to place my tape back to my shoulder line, mark what I have there. I have 20 inches, so I'm going to go ahead and mark it here. 20 inches. That is to signify where I want my top to stop. So I can go ahead and add extra 1 inch to it for my joining. If you think your sleeve is not okay, that the sleeve length is too short, you can make it more longer. So this is what I have. The next thing I'm going to go ahead to do now is to cut out this piece. So guys, this is what we have. Just place your back piece on top of your front piece. Okay, now I didn't start from the center. I didn't place the center to center. Reason is because we're going to be having a drawstring in front. Okay, so I left about 2 inches space before placing my back piece. Now what I have to do is just to go ahead and trace this out, like cut it out. Okay, remember we have not cut out our back neck at this point, so now just have to do this up down. Okay, so now, sorry, I had to adjust the camera. I'm going to go ahead and cut this out. So I'll do this thing until I get to the bottom part of my dress, of my gown. So guys, now we're going to be cutting out our neck. Okay, remember we have already marked our back neck, which says that 3 by 2 inches. That is 2 inches for the depth of our neck and 3 inches for the width. That is for our back piece. Then for our front piece, I'm going to be working with 7 inches deep. Okay, you can decide to work with more, which is totally fine. You can decide to work with 7.5 or 8 inches. Is totally okay. So I'm working with 7 inches deep, while the width is 3 inches. Okay, and it's coming off like a UV neckline. It's not a U neckline, like a circle neckline. Is not a V neckline. Let's just say UV neckline. All right, so I'm going to go ahead now and cut it. Before then, I'm going to be denoting my zipper. That's my drawstring allowance, which is here. All right, so from this point now, I'm going to be curving it down my 7 inches. I don't know if you're seeing what I'm doing clearly. So from this point, you curve it to your UV because you're going to be folding this in. All right, so this is what I have to do. So that by the time I fold this in, I'll still have a perfect look here. So this is what I'm going to be having. Then I'm going to be biasing this upper part, this neck area. Either use a bias, fine. You can decide to cut a facing for it, which is fine, or you can decide to fold it or hem it in. Anyone you decide to do is totally fine. Okay, guys, so the next thing I'm going to be working on is our back piece. The first thing I did was to stitch the center of my back piece, join the two fabrics together. I've done that. All right, then I went ahead to hem the bottom part of my gown, like run a stitch on it, folding. Then the next thing I'm going to go ahead to do now is to cut out a facing for my neck area to cover up these rough edges. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and do now. Back piece, all right, just place it on top of a fabric, trace it out. So now the next thing we're going to be working on is our front piece. First of all, I'll go ahead and hem the bottom parts of my front pieces. All right, go ahead and hem it. When you're done hemming, you go ahead and run a stitch on it. Remember, we'll mark 2 inches for our joining. All right, so now we're going to be folding it in. So first of all, hem the bottom part of your front piece. At this point, I've gone ahead to join my 2 front pieces together, and this is what I have. So the next thing I'm going to be doing now is I'm going to be press opening it. Okay, so my iron is already hot. I'll go ahead and press open it. So now at this point, I'm done. The next thing I'm going to go ahead to do is I'm going to be running a stitch on top here to form or to make a casing, all right, for our drawstring. Now you can decide to run your stitch, fine. You can decide to fold it in so that this design will not come out, this African print mouse will not come out. All right, so that's the essence of adding 2 inches. So yours, you can add 1.5 to 1 inch. Now I'll fold it in a little, go ahead and run a stitch on it from the bottom to the top, or from the top to the bottom. All right, so I'm done folding in my casing. All right, and I went ahead to also iron it. So the next thing I'm going to do now is I want to deepen my neck width, that is for my front. Remember, I think we worked with 7 to 7.5 inches. Okay, we worked with 7.5 inches, but I want to make it up to 9 inches, all right, or 8.5 inches. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and cut it out. I'm still maintaining the same neck width. All right, so having done this now, the next thing I'm going to be doing now is I'm going to be cutting out a facing for my neck piece or my neckline. I'm going to be cutting out a facing for it. So at this point now, I'm going ahead to cut out my facing. Just put a fabric beneath your main gown or your main fabric, then trace it out. You know, so this is what I have. I'm going to go ahead and run a stitch here to hold these 2 pieces together because I don't have enough fabric. Okay, so it's going to be having a joining. So I'll go ahead and join it. Then I will now attach it to my gown. The next thing I went ahead to do was to prepare my drawstrings. Okay, I used 2 inches to create this drawstring. That's the boldness, or the width is 2 inches. The length is as long as your gown plus extra. All right, so this is what I have. Now I'm going to be passing it through the casing I've made. That's what I'm going to go ahead now and do. I'll pass these drawstrings in my casing. So after inserting my drawstrings, this is what I have. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and introduce my facing. So this is my facing. So I'll go ahead and stitch on it, run a stitch round the neck area from this tip to the next tip. Okay, so that's what I'm going to go ahead now and do. So now, after joining my facing, the next thing I went ahead to do was to notch it round. Okay, so notch it. Please mind your stitches. This is why you not cut out your thread or cut on your stitch. So after doing this, the next thing I'm going to go ahead to do now is to iron it flat. Then I'm going to be introducing a hemming gum to keep the two pieces together. All right, so iron down, then introduce your hemming gum. So for my front piece, what I'm going to do is from the shoulder line, I'm going to be marking down to my half length. So from the shoulder line, I'll take my measurement till to the half length I'm working with. So the half length I'm working with is 16 inches, or that is my half length. Alright, or 16 and a half inches. At this point now, I'm going to divide my waist into 4. Okay, you go ahead and divide your waist measurements by 4. So whatever you have, mark it. Like my waist measurements, when I divide it by 4, I'm going to be getting 7 inches. So from the center point, I'm going to mark 7 inches here. This is where my 7 inches is going to be. And from this other end, I'm also going to go ahead and mark 7 inches. Alright, now you're going to go ahead and create your belt holder, or you're going to go ahead and create a belt. Alright, just like your normal belt, any how you want to do it. So this is part of my drawstrings that I have left. I'm going to be using it as my belt. Alright, now I'm going to go ahead and stitch this here. Just run a stitch on it, and also do the same thing for this other side. My belt to my gown. The next thing I'm going to go ahead to do now is to join my two shoulders together. That is the front piece and the back piece shoulders together at this point now. I'll go ahead and join my shoulders together. When I'm done joining the shoulders, I'll fold my sleeve area. Okay, the tip of my sleeve, I'll go ahead and hem it. So first of all, join your shoulders together, then hem the edge of your sleeves. So I'm done hemming the edges of my sleeve, and this is what I have. So the next thing I'm going to go ahead to do now is I'm going to go ahead and shape my dress. Alright, so that's what I'm going to go ahead and do. You can decide to use half an inch, you can decide to work with 1 inch, it's totally fine. So from here now, you're going to run a stitch down to the bottom part of your gown, after which your gown is ready to be rocked and styled the way you want.